तव ॐ निरञ्जनं नित्यम् अनन्तरूपं भक्तानुकम्पाधृतविग्रहं वै ईशावतारं परमेशमिड्यं तं रामकृष्णं शिरसा नमाम जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयो श्रुत्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः नमः श्रीयतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चिद्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे. So today we are here to celebrate Sri Ramakrishna's 186th birthday. It was actually on the 15th of March, as it was a weekday, and as is our normal practice, we have selected this weekend for the celebration of Sri Ramakrishna's birthday. In the morning, we had our puja, the homa, the pushpanjali. Of course, we will have pushpanjali again today after the class, after this today's discussion. And the topic which we have selected today for our discussion is the spiritual unfoldment as enacted in the life of Sri Ramakrishna. So the theme itself is significant. So it is not just the spiritual unfoldment of Sri Ramakrishna. It is actually the spiritual unfoldment as enacted, because he is an avatar. He is already a realized soul. All he is doing is having a certain purpose. He came down and just adopted a way of life, which is as if he's a realized soul. He's taking in him, as it has been mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, by the Yoga Maya. There are two types of Maya. One is the Guna Maya and another is the Yoga Maya. Guna Maya is the delusion in which we are. That as per our karma, we are bound to take birth in particular circumstances. But Ishvara, the Lord, comes down as per his will by resorting to another aspect of Maya. There is a Yoga Maya. And when he comes down, he acts just like a human being. Otherwise, we won't have the conviction that such a life can be adopted. We will think, after all, he's a superhuman. So he just enacts the entire life drama in such a way that we find a role model. We find a role model in that personality, in the divine personality. So that's why it was an enactment, as in the Bhagavad Gita commentary. Shankaracharya is mentioning the word eva. This dhyayat eva, lilayat eva means as if. So he comes down to enact, so that we find a role model which motivates us to adopt that type of life and unfold the spiritual dimension of our existence in this very life. So we will find that who Sri Ramakrishna was and how his life is connected to ours, that his spiritual sadhana, when we think, most of the people think that most probably we cannot adopt anything of it. It's so high, so intense. But we will try to understand the various aspects of his spiritual journey, which is very important even in our life. So we will just divide his life into three phases. First, till he realizes God for the first time as the priest of Kali in the Kali temple. He has a vision of Kali. After that, this real sadhana, as per the tradition, as per the the gurus are concerned. Gurus come to his life. He follows the particular tradition, and following that, he reaches the absolute. Where he has a series of gurus, sequence of gurus. At last, under the guidance of Totapuri, he has that Advaitic realization of the absolute. And then his spiritual journey doesn't stop. We find that he had a almost unending quest to search the divine in various ways. And then that unique thing he has adopted after getting established in the Advaitic realization, that unitary realization, we find a wonderful thing that he has adopted the Islam, the Christian way of spiritual practice. And not only that, it never remained just as a make belief in his life. He has went to the realization, and from the realization, from that conviction, it's not just mere belief, from that conviction he comes out with the proposition, Joto Moth, Tato Path. As many ways, so many. As many paths, so many ways. All the paths lead to the same goal. So that's the uh, journey of Sri Ramakrishna, which we will try to just today follow in a short way. It's a very intense life. It's a very profound life. So as a child, we find as a child, he has a very special faculty to get immersed in nature, the faculty of awe, AWE. We get awestruck. It's a wonderful faculty. Nowadays, we sometimes, in the name of rationality, don't utilize it much. That we should always be rational. We shouldn't believe in myths, mythologies. Even to our children, we educate that way. But we forget it is a faculty which has to be nourished. If we don't nourish, it will find expression in perverted ways. This faculty of awe. What's that? In our Sanskrit, they say that human being is such, we can never think ourselves to be limited. Sa anantaya kalpate. We can never think ourselves limited. We always think we are infinite. And that's why you will find, even for a small child, most probably you have never instructed that small child in any spiritual ways of living. Most probably you have not told him any of those myths, the stories, nothing. But what he's attracted to, you'll find a wonderful thing. The moment he comes back from the school, the moment he gets chance, he will throw his school bag, and immediately on the screen, the monitor, then what? He will just start observing all sorts of comics. And all those are something superhuman. It has nothing to do with the human capabilities. We have that tremendous urge to go beyond all the limitations. I cannot jump a 20-story building. The child sees those characters, the Superman, the Batman, whatever it is, and by observing that, it identifies with that. You will find the child always wants to dress like them. It wants to adopt their way of life. It wants to identify with them. And that way always imagines. It cannot do it. It imagines that it can cross all the limitations. And that's the faculty of awe, actually, which we also have as an adult. You know, from your job, from your work, you find it's monotonous. Sometimes you take leave. And where do you go? With all your money you spend, even the government gives you subsidy, you go to some countryside to enjoy the scenery, the range of mountains, the ocean. And why it relaxes you? There also that sense of infinity, that tires of mountain. You find, so for some time, your ego has as if dissolved, it has merged, and you find relaxed by identifying with that infinite sense of infinity, which finds expression in the nature. And that's the faculty has to be nurtured if we have to rise in love. In English, we say fall in love. Love as if always be fall. That's what Swami Vivekananda, when he was in the West, very interesting thing. Swami Vivekananda was in the West, he delivered a lecture on Vedanta. And after giving a lecture on Vedanta, someone stood up from the audience and just told Swamiji, you are speaking that you are the conscious principle, that you are beyond all dualities or limitations. That's what you were speaking of. But in practice, you are all idol worshippers, isn't it? Swami Vivekananda was interrupted in the lecture, and so he was pacing up and down the stage, the dais, and then addressed that person. A very interesting thing. Well, sir, isn't it you are also idol worshippers? So that man was a bit perplexed. Well, how come we are idol worshippers? And then what Swami Vivekananda told was something very interesting. Well, why you the young men of the America, you don't want you kneel down in front of a lady, young lady, and say you are the what you say the angel. So we see in a human being of flesh and blood some angel. So what is happening that all faculty is acting there. You cannot stop it. But as you have never cultured it, it finds expression either in sensuousness or it can be something very dangerous. Even you will find there are some IT professionals who have somehow got involved in destructive all sorts of this terrorist activities in the name of religion. What there also you will find the all faculties working. That if you adopt this way of life, this destructive way of life, after your death, you go to heaven. Somehow you will find that sense of limitlessness, that I go to some extension of to certain dimension of existence which is beyond all limitations. And that awe faculty inspires me to again to go to some destructive mode of life. Why? Because in education system we have never cared for this awe faculty which is in us. If you don't nurture it will find its way in a perverted way. You will find that that was the scope which was there, which should be there. Now the child grows in the city, he finds that only that it's a jungle of concretes. And the idea the child have in that encapsulated environment is that everything is man-made, nothing beyond that. That's what it is getting. It is just staying in that city. That when you go to that bit, that's what is the countryside, and you can see the nature. If the child doesn't get that chance, that all faculty is never nurtured. And that's the very first thing in the life of Ramakrishna we find. It was that all faculty was so strong that one day we find that story you all know, with a basket full of puffed rice, he was walking down the narrow road which was separating the two paddy fields. He was just walking down it. And suddenly he saw that the sky got clouded with the thunder clouds. It was totally pitch dark. And from nowhere, the snow white cranes came. And in that contrast, that wonderful contrast, in that pitch dark cloud, the cranes, the white snow cranes are flying. Seeing that awe faculty was so intense in the life of Ramakrishna, we find for the first time, he gets unconscious. That's total, this sense of this ego is dissolved. As Ramakrishna used to say, that what is spirituality actually? This ego dissolving in that non-local consciousness, like a salt doll. A salt doll wanted to measure the depth of the ocean. The moment it just took a dip in the ocean, it just merged. Who will give the news of the depth of the ocean? So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. So that's the mergence of your individuality. That actually gives the real happiness. Happiness is never in the sensual pursuits of life. It only gives dukkha. Dukkha doesn't mean suffering. Dukkha means dissatisfaction. It never satisfies you. You have it, again the urge for having it is there. As if you are in a hedonistic treadmill. What is the hedonistic treadmill? It's hellish. In a treadmill, you are running, you go nowhere. In the same place you are running. In the words of Swami Vivekananda, ever running, never reaching, nor a distant glimpse of shore. So that never gives us pleasure. The real pleasure is, even in the modern psychology, they say in the flow. If you can enter into a flow where all your so-called biological alarm system has fallen off because of your tremendous focus on your object of contemplation, then you enter into a state of bliss, which has as if no end. And that speaks of the quality of happiness. For the first time, we see that in the life of Ramakrishna, that the faculty of awe, through the faculty of awe, as a small child of 5 or 6 years old, he's going to that samadhi, that state of divine absorption without contemplating on the divine, just by being absorbed in the nature. The second faculty which we find, again, in the present day, it is very important, that is medha, the retention power, the power of the memory. Nowadays, everything is online. Anything you search, nothing you have to keep it in your mind. Everything is readily available. There's onslaught of information. So much of information is there. But this medha faculty is very important. It has to be grown in spiritual life. Why? Because you know that one Sanskrit slok that uh, this parahastagatam dhanam, that pustakasta chaya vidya parahastagatam dhanam karya kale samutpanne nacha vidya natad dhanam. So the knowledge which is in the book or which is in the internet or the wealth which is with someone else, at the moment of crisis, it's not going to help you in any way. So that's the problem with the present civilization. You will find, in the words of Ramakrishna, the present education system is what? It's like with all your education, we are like just vultures soaring high up in the sky, but our total attention, focus is somewhere in the pit where there is rotten carrion, rotten flesh. The vulture is soaring high, very high up in the sky, but its focus is on the rotten flesh somewhere in this, on the surface of the earth. With all our education, we find it in no way helps us to overhaul our personality. We remain as we are with all our, what you say, that the nervous system creating a havoc, creating a wreck. With all our knowledge, we cannot control ourselves, we cannot manage ourselves. And that's why we find that to retain what you learn is very important, the medha. Whenever Sri Ramakrishna used to go to the, just have, what you say, that see the theaters, the village theaters, he used to go to just witness the village theaters, just word by word, he will remember the songs. That was a wonderful faculty. And he will come and enact with other friends, the cowherds, the friends, the entire thing in a mango grove called Manik Raja's Grove. You have all, those who have read the life of Ramakrishna, you know. He will enact. He's the one who is the script writer as a young boy, and he's playing with them. And that way, it actually speaks of this, you know, the oral tradition. Ramakrishna is the one who never studied scriptures. The one who is a realized soul, the knowledge is coming out in flow from his mouth, we find. But from where he got it? This, from all the oral tradition. This is a wonderful tradition where even beyond the books, you get the knowledge of the scriptures just by the plays, by all the dramas, theaters that goes on in the villages of the various gods and goddesses. From that, he is inculcating, and not only that, he never forgets. He's enacting them to just remember all of them. And not only remember, his medha is so strong that he knows when to use it. Even as a child, we find that there was some discussion going on among the scholars, and we find that they couldn't come to any particular decision. And there we find this young boy, suddenly as a young boy, is going and just saying something where all finds a solution, and all were taken by surprise that how is it possible for such a young boy to remark something which speaks of the wisdom. In our spiritual life, another thing is very important, that is called aham graha upasana. What we do for all of us, that sometimes we go to the shrine or to the temple, the church, and we think the one who is there in my front, whether it is Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, whoever it may be, all the holiness belongs to him. I am imperfect. I am imperfect. The one who is in front of me is perfect. And what happens that way? I go, I bow down, and I have an idea, just by having faith in him, I will be liberated. But in no way that life actually helps us to internalize those values and try to overhaul my own personality. And that's the very thing, important thing, which is possible through aham graha upasana. I won't go to the discussion. Just by an example, you will understand what is aham graha upasana. Just take a doctor. The doctor, after practicing, returns to his home. Most probably he has 3-4 children. And all the children come running after just seeing their father throughout the day's work. After throughout the day's work, he is back. So all the children come running. The father, being a doctor, has kept his white coat separately, has opened his shoes, has kept the stethoscope somewhere in the table. All the children come running, and one will take the stethoscope and go on throughout the house, just keeping it on the chest of other members, feigning as if he is a doctor. Someone else will wear the white coat and move around as if he has become the doctor. Someone will wear the father's shoes and move around as if he has become the doctor. No one becomes doctor just by wearing the white coat of the doctor or by having the stethoscope. But the father, who is the doctor, is happy. You know why? Because he knows by all these, behind all these childish acts, those acts are all childish. But behind all those childish acts, a motivation is working. That one day I have to become like my father, a great doctor. So though all those acts are childish, but behind that the motivation is working. So this is the idea of Ahangraha Upasana. That's why now Kumbh Mela is going on. In Kumbh Mela, you will find a wonderful thing. This is the biggest religious congregation in the world. You can never find such a huge congregation, but it is extremely chaotic. You go to a church, everyone, you will find a wonderful discipline is there. All are saying the same prayers. All are kneeling down at the same time, getting up. Even when the Muslim does the namaz, to do the namaz prayers, they're doing the same thing. But you go to the Kumbh Mela, millions of people are there, but no two humans are doing the same thing. Even the husband, wife most probably have different rituals. And sometimes we find that nowadays, even that some are of the opinion that this huge mob has to be organized. But it's again not understanding the religion at all. It's the idea of Ahangraha Upasana, the same thing. The way I relate to the divine may be totally different from yours. The one who is having the stethoscope is having fun in a different way than the one who is wearing the white coat. They're all childish. Apparently, those all rituals may mean nothing. If you just try to understand scientifically, it may mean nothing. It may be totally childish. It may be so variant. But behind all those acts, one thing is acting. I have to become divine, more and more divine. Through whatever I'm doing, no one thinks, even the one who is repeating the mantra without knowing its meaning, never thinks that I have to be as a villain. I have to be something divine. That's what they're thinking. Maybe they don't know the meaning of the mantra. They're doing some rituals, complicated rituals of which even they don't know what its utility is. But somehow that motivation is working. Through all these acts, I am becoming pure, I am becoming divine, and I'm internalizing all the divine qualities through that. And that is an idea of Ahangraha Upasana. So what you're doing is actually something very apparent. Behind it, the real meaning is there. Just the way the computer programming, you may be a very good software programmer. When you're programming the language, I understand nothing. It may appear to me it's totally meaningless, but why still I resort to get a programmer? Because I know the output is waiting there. What he's doing, that language has no meaning to me, but the output which I get through it, that will serve my purpose. So here also we can know that all these religious traditions with all those apparent meaningless rituals and all, as such, it may have no meaning. But you know the output, it can make Gadadhar Ramakrishna. That's why Swami Vivekananda, when he was in the West, when someone was criticizing idol worship, and then Swami Vivekananda at last told that my guru was an idol worshipper. Just show me a single human being as spiritually evolved as him, and then I will just criticize this idol worship. Through idol worship he came, because it's a programming. So if you take it literally, it may not mean anything. And that's the idea of Ahangraha Upasana. And that we find that Sri Ramakrishna, when he has, you will find the same thing, that imitating others, and through that internalizing the values. There was an almshouse in Kamarpukur. All this, many monks used to stay there for a few days on their way to Puri. And Ramakrishna, as a young boy, as a Gadai, every day used to visit there. And being with the sadhus, he used to get inspired. And now and then he will come back home with totally, that smeared with ash, with some marks on the forehead, and the cloth he has torn and just worn the loin cloth like the sadhus. The mother will be taken by she will be a bit shocked seeing her son in such a dress. but those are the things which are actually giving that internal motivation that one day I have to be like them. So just it is just a mere imitation, but through this all those acts, it was, and this identification was very strong in the village on the Shivaratri night when the play was going on Shiva. This on the life of Shiva, some play was going on because you have to be awake throughout the night. So some entertainment, if it's there, then it helps us to be awake throughout the night. So there was a play on the life of Shiva, on the, the divine play of Shiva, and we find an interesting thing. What has happened? The one who was supposed to act as Shiva, he got suddenly sick, and then they had to find someone who can act as Shiva, and they found this Gadadhar, young Ramakrishna. They told that you won't have to say much. There is not many dialogues. We will decorate you and be in the stage, and very few dialogues are there. You can manage. And he agreed. And when the moment he was dressed like Shiva, the moment he went to the stage, he got so identified with Shiva, he became totally motionless. First, all thought that most probably he's acting very well. But after some time, they found that he's saying nothing. It's totally motionless. He has become stiff, and he has actually went into a type of samadhi. And the play had to be stopped because we find that he couldn't be brought down to the normal sense, normal awareness for 2 or 3 days. So that was the deep absorption just by being dressed like Shiva, just by being dressed like Shiva, and immediately he gets identified with Shiva so much that he takes him to a type of tremendous spiritual absorption. So the same thing happens, we find, when once he was going to the Vishalakshi temple. While singing, again, he goes to that tremendous, very deep spiritual absorption. So these all speaks of that ahangraha upasana, that you are playfully as if imitating some character. But when you're so much identified with it, that inspiration makes you totally oblivious of the surrounding, and you get totally deeply merged, being identified with that personality. And that's the only way you can internalize the values which those characters represent. So just see this ordinary life with a so-called apparently ordinary child has these wonderful traits which actually speaks of spirituality. Nowadays, spirituality means I will spend the day as I want, and when I cannot control my mind for some 1 hour or half an hour, I will just sit for meditation. That way, spirituality never works. It has to be something 24/7. There are so many faculties. All those faculties has to be nurtured. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say very nicely, a flute has 7 holes. If you want to get a music out of it, you have to use your fingers in such a way that it will be moving around all the holes. Then only the music will come out. If you close all the holes and keep one hole open and blow the pipe, only a noise will come out. You will never get the music. To get the music, you have to know the art of playing on those with your fingers on the holes in such a way that all the holes are utilized so that the music comes out. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say that a human personality is like that flute. There are a lot of faculties. If you just close all of them, if you don't allow to manifest all those faculties and just become one-sided with one faculty, with my career, with my education, know it for certain, from your life after some time, you yourself will find this noise is coming out, no music. It becomes extremely monotonous. So this is the thing. There's so many faculties which Sri Ramakrishna we find is manifesting. This kala, performing arts. Nowadays, even in India, everywhere we find this what you say, that this reality shows. From the small child, immediately he is exposed to the audience, big audience, and he's performing, wonderfully performing. But do you think in any way it is going to help that? No, as most of the cases we find, the child gets so much of approbation as a small boy, gets so much of approbation from the society. And when if he grows up a little and he finds a little indifference from others, that takes him to deep depression. There are many such cases because from the very childhood, the kala was meant for getting approbation, for getting acceptance of the society. But in our old culture, kala was what? Which liberates. Sa kala ya vimuktaye. It speaks of absorption. When you are singing, you are so absorbed, you forget everything. You will find the classical singer singing throughout the night. He is not aware, or she is not aware of the hunger, thirst, anything. He forgets hunger, he forgets thirst. What has happened? The mind is so focused, has entered into a flow in such a way that all the bodily needs, for that a part of your mind is required. A part of your mind is required to be aware of the bodily alarms, your hunger, your thirst, your tiredness, your need to sleep. All those alarm systems has got deactivated because the entire mind is focused on the object of absorption. And that was the thing for which the kala, all these performing arts were meant. Sri Ramakrishna was a wonderful singer. He used to enchant. But the only thing, even someone asked that how you got a beautiful voice. He was never trained. And he told, Mairi Bolchi in Bengali. Mairi Bolchi means I am just swearing that I am never aware when I'm singing that people are around me. He gets so absorbed. He developed this kala, this performing arts, even the arts he has developed. He was a wonderful sculptor. He used to go and spend hours with the village. Those who used to have prepare the clay models, he will spend hours and learned the art of sculpture. And he used to make wonderful sculpture. While making it, he will be singing. And that song used to be so endearing. Those who were near, they also felt attracted. Rani Rashmani actually got attracted first to Ramakrishna because of that singing while making that wonderful image of some god or goddess. And he used to totally get absorbed in it, that he used to enter into a flow. And that's what is the real purpose of kala. Just see why we are saying that sometimes when we read the life of Ramakrishna, we feel as if these all characters have nothing to do with us. They all are actually something which we can internalize, which can show us the way. We are doing something which is not proper. If I have to teach the child music, I have to teach him that why music? Not for approbation. It is a wonderful hobby whereby which you can have some wonderful time with yourself. You need not have to depend on something else. You need not have to be addicted on something else and become those, what you call this attention deficiency syndromes. That's nowadays, this is a major problem because they don't know what to do with themselves. Constantly they have to be engaged with the media or something. If these things were used for that purpose, it could be spiritually liberating. Spirituality doesn't mean just to have the vision of God. It means actually to transcend our limitations in all possible ways and to live a life which is extremely, productive. And that's what we find in the life of Ramakrishna, the wonderful faculty of viveka. When his elder brother Ramkumar found that he is wasting his time, not studying properly, we find that he's telling that what will happen? We cannot think of your education. What will you do when you grow up? And then what he's saying is very interesting, that, brother, what shall I do with a mere bread-winning education? Chal kola badha vidya. Means as a Brahmin, he was supposed to do puja, and while returning, they will just give him, that in a bag full of rice, cereals, some cloths. That is chal kola badha vidya. So you get some remuneration. I still remember, in the Calcutta University, it was written the center of learning, and because of there is no maintenance, and because of the weather condition, that L got eroded. So what it becomes? So all our center of learning is actually that. It's center of earning, nothing else. So that's what Chal Kola Vidya actually means. So this is Chal Kola Vidya. See, Ramakrishna is just as a child, he's quiet, means alert about it, aware about it. Has a wonderful power of observation. He's seeing, looking around, that what after all, with all those so-called academic education people are doing, it is not giving any fulfillment. We all think, what's the condition, what's our life? We all go through this midlife crisis. But what all we thought is our aim, what our goal, we reach it by our early 30s or 40s, and then we don't know what to do with our life. Done, we reach a plateau. Everything has been that, all their education, profession, everything has been reached. I don't know what to do with my life. So Sri Ramakrishna having that power of discrimination, that life cannot be just led just the way, like the grazing animal. There's just, that the grazing animal, that there was a question, very nice question asked. The maths teacher asked the question to the students, that that there's so many lambs are just walking, as are just moving on the narrow path which separates the two paddy fields, grass fields, and one of them gets down. So how many will be there? There are 10 lambs, one gets down. So all the students, they say it's 9. One say, not a single. And he was asked that, how come? Well, I am the son of a farmer. I know the way of the lamb. If one gets down, all will follow it. There cannot be a single. So that's what we all humans are. We all humans are just Gaddalika Prabha. We have all got up in this wagon band, just follow the so-called role models who are just a bunch of advertisement. They sing that don't worry, be happy. And the next day we find the one who has become famous by singing don't worry, be happy has committed suicide. So that's what happens. So that's the thing. We find Sri Ramakrishna is very observant. He knows the way of life. And he's just saying that what will I do with that type of education? It's not going to give me any fulfillment. And the tremendous Shraddha. So for us, when we are going to the shrine, seeing the photo never creates a question in my mind, whether it's a real photo or something is there behind it. For the very first day, the Ramakrishna was in Dakshineshwar, that's the question. And he actually started seeing the divine in the so-called the stone image. He always used to say, it is not Mrinmayi, it is Chinmayi, full of consciousness. The tremendous faith is something which is required in spiritual life. Without the faith, you can never progress in spiritual life. Ramakrishna used to say a very interesting thing, that if you have done a lot of meritorious acts in your past lives, then you become very simple. Then you believe in the world. For us, we are all intellectual fools. What happens after studying a lot, at last, we understand that without faith, there cannot be any spirituality. What actually happens, suppose someone told that such and such image is your Ishta, is your chosen ideal. And now I may question, as an intellectual, I may question that why? I may find no meaning, because there is actually again a programming there. If you, with faith, take it to be your chosen ideal, and you can focus on it, concentrate on it, make it your chosen deity, what happens? The more the focus, the more the world falls off. Your mind is actually becoming one-pointed. It is actually having only one module. And now it becomes very easy to get rid of that. And once you get rid of the mind, immediately what you say, it takes you to that absolute realization. The mind is like a prism. The mind is like a prism where the white light is falling and breaking into the spectrum. The spectrum is this world of name and form. The white light is that consciousness, and the prism is the mind. The only spiritual practice is to get rid of the mind. Spectrum falls off. Immediately you realize that I am actually one with that absolute reality. It's only this mind which is projecting this as this universe. You may say it is a philosophical. No, I will just say you will understand immediately. There's red flower. Is it red? No. Even science will say you it's not red. What is happening? There is no color. All the bands of colors, so-called, are just mere vibrations of light. The moment they touch your eye, their work stops there. The light never enters your brain. It stops here. What is entering is that is encoded as your nerve current. It touches your retina, that it gets converted into a nerve, particular type of nerve current, particular band of nerve current. That is reaching the so-called color perception center of your brain. That is reaching the color perception center of your brain. It is actually not perceiving any color. It's the darkest part of your body. It is projecting. It is projecting that redness. That redness is actually produced by your mind. It is projected and it is going and enveloping that object, and you say it is red. So now you will understand, just with that one example, that mind is actually projector. We are very poor imitators. Nowadays, with this, all this, what is the 3D projection, we say we have done wonderful thing. But just think what God has done. He has made a projector with which we can project 5 senses, not only this hearing and listening, hearing and seeing. That's what we can do with our projectors. You can see and hear. It can, you have the sense of touch, your sense of smell, sense of taste. All the so many things have been projected in a wonderful way, which we think to be real, but is actually a projection of the mind. Get rid of it. Is everything gone? No. That's the thing. That amness, that's never, even you can understand that when, if I take the color of this mug and everything, these are the things which my mind is projecting. If I take them all out, then is there nothing? Something is there which I can never know, which I can never know. That isness I can never deny. Something is there which my mind is projecting as this color, this shape and all, isn't it? But that isness I can never deny. That ultimate isness, amness, which the scriptures are saying, all the scriptures saying, is not something inert. That is conscious. The through spiritual practices, when you go beyond the mind, it takes you to that realization. Now you will find where that faith comes, has importance in life. The one who understands nothing of this psychological principle. Someone has told, most probably gave a statue of a monkey and told, this is your Ishta. And he believed it. He took it and became one pointed, and at one pointedness, at last takes you to that one thought takes you to the thoughtlessness. That's why we will find the mystics of all the religions has went to that unitary experience. You will understand it very easily. What happens, when the mind is jumping from thought to thought, then only the mind can exist. But if you can make it one pointed, the mind cannot exist. Why? Just even in this life, you will find everything, when there is a polarity, there is a flow. From higher potential to lower potential, current flows. When there is a difference of level, there is water flows. If there is same level, water cannot flow. If the same potential, current cannot flow. Mind is mind as long as it can flow from thought to thought, jump from thought to thought. The moment you can make it one thought, it stops. And that takes you to that ultimate realization. It has happened with all the mystics. So if that you have that, suddenly you have that faith that this is my Ishta, and don't question. I start my spiritual journey on the day one. All others are just clearing their mind to start from there. Maybe for many years it will take. That's why there's this common thing which is told for those who go to learn music. You go to learn, say, tabla to an ustad, and he will ask, have you ever learned tabla? If you say no, he will charge you less. And if you say yes, he will charge you more. Because why? First, he will have to make you forget all the wrong things which you have learned. And then he will start. So for us, with so-called our intellectuality, first we have to clear the mind and start with that person, that so-called ordinary person, that simpleton who has just simple faith. And that's the thing Ramakrishna has. He never thinks that image to be made of clay. It is Chinmayi. He's interacting with that. When he finds that he's not getting any realization, that tremendous mumukshutva, he's just rolling on the ground and just rubbing his face. He's rubbing his face, rolling on the ground and crying that, oh mother, another day has gone. You haven't given me vision. All others thought he has got mad. And when even his nephew started saying that, uncle, all are saying that you have gone mad. And very nicely he used to reply that who is not mad? Everyone is mad. Someone is mad after money, some after sensual pleasures, some after name and fame. I am mad after God. What's the harm? So as simple as that. So just you find that he is mad, but he has not lost his wits. And we are so-called, the so-called rational beings, but our wit can be questioned, but we never question. You know why? Because in this world, after all, the majority rules. All the so-called this unillumined beings. We vote. We are the majority, and that's why we say we are normal. Even in the modern days, you will find even in neurology, they never say the mad word is not used anymore. They say he's a bit different. Just think that you will understand that when I say this flower is red, if someone is colorblind and says it's different color or whatever it is, It's actually what I am also projecting, you are also projecting. It is a consensus reality. We all agree that it is the same color. Someone is projecting a bit different. He's not mad. He's a minority. He's not projecting in our way. So that's why in modern psychology, they never say he's mad or he has some mental problem. He is a bit different. That's the only thing. And Ramakrishna was a bit different. And that's the thing which is actually speaking of his spirituality. When a dance was going on in a dance floor, all were dancing in rhythm. One person was out of rhythm. And someone told that he cannot dance. And then someone remarked that most probably he is hearing some rhythm which we don't hear. And in that rhythm, he is dancing. So it appears to be beyond rhythm. See, it appears to be mad, but actually he's dancing in rhythm. And that's the thing which we find that Shraddha has given him, and that mumukshutva, intense yearning for God. And that is the thing which is taking him to the first realization, very first realization, without so-called help of any spiritual guru. That's the thing, though he had some initiation from some Kenaram, but after that, the guru never gave him any personal instruction. After giving him the mantra, he left. And just holding onto that mantra with a tremendous urge, earnestness, he went to that first realization. And that's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying, a very interesting thing, that earnestness is something like the red hue of the dawn. This his way of saying are wonderful. At the dawn, when you see the red hue, the sun is yet to be seen. Just by seeing the red hue, you know in no time the sun is going to be visible. The sun is going to be visible. So this yearning is like that red hue. If it is in your life, know it for sun. In no time, you are going to have that realization. The sun will be visible in very short time. So that's why he used to say this yearning is like the red hue of the dawn. So that's how we will find that at the very beginning, Sri Ramakrishna is reaching that spiritual realization, that flood of realization comes. He goes beyond the mind. That in the words we can read that I was then suffering from excruciating pain because I had not been blessed with a vision of the mother. I felt as if my heart were being wrung like a wet towel. I was overpowered by a great restlessness and a fear that it might not be my lot to realize her in this life. I could not bear the separation any longer. Life did not seem worth living. Suddenly my eyes fell on the sword that was kept in the mother's temple. Determined to put an end to my life, I jumped up like a madman and seized it, when suddenly the blessed mother revealed herself to me and I fell unconscious on the floor. What exactly happened after that, or how that day or the next passed, I do not know. But within me, there was a steady flow of undiluted bliss, altogether new. I felt the presence of the Divine Mother. So almost time. So we have just actually with 3 phases of life, only the first phase we were discussing, the first realization. But this actually took him, in short, we can say, to a sense of doubt. Because you know that what happens when you have a tremendous, intense divine inspiration. It's like a strong current passing through a wire. Our nerves are like wires. It has the capacity to bear with certain upsurge of emotions. If the emotions becomes too strong, it actually is as if at the verge of collapse. Just if you try to pass a huge electricity through a wire, what will happen? It will simply get burned. That's why you use the fuse to stop that, to get rid of that tremendous surge. It cannot bear. And that's what happened in the life of Sri Ramakrishna. The tremendous spiritual surge started creating havoc in his body. And that created a doubt in his life that am I getting mad? Is my spiritual journey taking me to some of this off the track? And that's the time we find one by one the gurus start coming. You need not have to have a GPS to reach a guru. So the guru will start coming the moment you have that urge. They will come. You need not have to go. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, that when the flower blooms, the bees come. If there is a spiritually illumined soul, then the bees, not all, the bees will be drawn towards it. In the life of Ramakrishna, we find that the one by one, because of that urge, that the sequence of spiritual gurus are coming, And now he starts the same spiritual journey as per the tradition. And then that brings him to that conviction, no, I was not wrong. Actually, this is an intense spiritual inebriation which has resulted in all those bodily so-called symptoms. As he used to say, that if an elephant enters into a hut, what will happen? The hut will just simply fall off. That's what has happened with me. The bhava hasti has entered into my body. So then we find that the Yogeshwari, the Bhairavi Brahmani coming, Totapuri coming. So I will have to make the long story short. If I just go on, it will take long time, because after all, Sri Ramakrishna sadhana is, means, that it has just started now. But till now, what we have discussed, it's the main spiritual practice starts after this. But in short, we will say, we'll go to the last. Let us go to the last, because that is an important thing. Ramakrishna had that with which we started, that infinite quest for spiritual realization. Though he realized first in the Tantra, way of Tantra, Vaishnava, and then under the guidance of Totapuri, he went to that absolute realization of the non-dual reality. His spiritual journey doesn't stop there. That's the ultimate, we think. After that, he's pursuing this Islam, Christianity, and in every path, he went to the realization. That's a very important thing. It was not a mere make-believe. And that makes him convinced of the fact that all the paths lead to the same goal. Today, I will just make the long story, to make the long story short. I will just speak as a conclusion one of the examples of Ramakrishna. It's a wonderful thing. So one thing today, in today's discussion, to a certain extent, you have an idea that what actually happens in spiritual journey when you are extremely focused. At last, the ego also falls off. When your mind is focused, first what happens? Someone is calling you. You are just seeing a match in the TV, and someone calls you, don't hear. The sound has entered your ear. But what has happened? As the most of the mind is focused on the game, there is no mind remaining to take care of all the other activities. There's no more. That mind has been taken away. That if it is still more absorbed, you forget taking food, you forget taking you just forget drinking water, you forget you are thirsty, you forget that you are sleepy, you are tired. And that's why we find that the painter is painting throughout the night, not fulfilling anything. That he has been so focused, all the bodily needs has also fallen off. In Yoga Sutra, that's the state which is called Videha. It gives you immense bliss. You forget that you are the body. Videha, that your body sense has also fallen off. You enter into a state of bliss, continuing bliss. But still then, one thing is there. What's there? I suppose I have developed that tremendous concentration where everything has fallen off, but still there is a distinction. That what distinction? That I am here, the object of meditation is there, and the meditation is connecting. In Sanskrit, they call Triputi, these three things: dhyana, dhyata, dheya. Why it is there? Because still a little part of my mind is required to keep intact the ego. That is the basal, there's the basal need for the mind to take care of the ego, that I. When the mind becomes still more concentrated, that ego, that the portion of the mind which takes care of ego, that has also fallen off. The object of your concentration has taken away the entire mind. Now you become identified with that. The Triputi, that idea that I am meditating, that falls off. And there's a collapse of the mind. You become one with the object of meditation. And that takes you to that unitary realization. It has happened with all the mystics. A wonderful thing Ramakrishna is saying. As he has practiced all the paths, he's saying a wonderful thing, that all the so-called chosen ideals are the framework which you are following, is the outline which you are chiseling in the wall of ego. Suppose I am a worshipper of Krishna. What I am doing in my mind, first I visualize Krishna. As it becomes intensified, as if I'm chiseling that more and more my ego is falling off, I'm chiseling that form of Krishna in the wall of ego. At last, what happens? I chisel a hole of the shape of Krishna. I peep through it. I see infinite expanse. And I say Krishna is infinite. He's the only God. Someone has done it with the Rama. He says Rama is infinite. That's the only God. And that's why we all fight. We have made one whole, and that's the framework through which we are peeping into the infinite, and we say that's the infinite. We are all fighting. Ramakrishna was the first in the spiritual, our heritage, to have created so many holes in the wall of ego and to peep through all of them and say, all are infinite. And that was his conviction. He has done that. And that's why Swami Vivekananda told Ramakrishna is Avatar Varishtha. Why he's Avatar Varishtha? In evolution, Varishtha means the greatest. Why he's giving, he's not fanatic. Why he's saying that? In evolution, there's a wonderful theory called, it's called Recapitulation Theory. The ontogeny repeats phylogeny. If you study the in the womb when the child is growing up, you will see a wonderful thing. The child starts as a single cellular organism. In 9 months, it is going through all the phases of evolution. Sometimes we were like fish, sometimes we were like amphibians, like birds. We had 2-chambered heart, it became 3-chambered. At last, it became 4-chambered. We were not warm-blooded at the beginning. Like fish, we had fins. And then it converted into lungs. We had tails. For some child, you have to operate. It doesn't fall off before taking birth. So we will find we have gone through all the stage of evolutions in 9 months when we were in mother's womb. But in nature, it took millions of years, as per the evolution is concerned, from a single cellular organism to evolve to human, it took millions of years. So what it took millions of years in nature, that happens just in 9 months in mother's womb. And that shows that we are the most evolved. We have recapitulated, like rebooting of the computer. On the computer, it doesn't like a light, it doesn't get on just in one go. All the programmings, everything which you have loaded, one by one, they're just kick, and that at last the computer gets on, it takes some time. It's called rebooting. So the entire evolution is also like rebooting. The more you evolved you are, the more this rebooting happens at last to evolve as a human being. So the shorter the time it takes to just retrace the entire path, the more evolved you are. That is the theory of recapitulation. And that happens in the spiritual journey. See, all the spiritual knowledge which we are getting as the successor, all in hand. And we can start our journey with all that tremendous fund of knowledge, which most probably took thousands of years. It took thousands of years to have that knowledge. With the intensification of the spiritual life, Ramakrishna in one life, like that recapitulation theory, ontogeny repeats phylogeny, has traversed it in one life. And at last came to that conclusion, out of conviction, not mere make-believe, that all the paths lead to the same goal. And it is something in this world which we are in need to realize. Still, in this world, we find that the biggest challenge is this fundamentalism. Still, in the name of religion, all the violence is going on, where the life of Ramakrishna is shining as a role model. It may take what Ramakrishna did in his one lifetime, it may require 1,000 years for the human society as such to go to that realization. But till then, Ramakrishna's sadhana has not actually been fulfilled. The purpose of Ramakrishna sadhana has not been fulfilled. It will be fulfilled when we all endeavor to realize that fact, that after all this spiritual journey is actually there's so many programmings to lead to the same conclusion. It will take us to the same goal in so many ways. And that alone can actually bring peace to the world. Not only peace to the world, it can save us from all sorts of doubts. In the present world, with so many spiritual practices, we find that there are so many that who have initiated in all the paths. I have most probably went to this some meditation and found no result, again goes to another meditation. Ramakrishna used to say very nicely that the peoples of Calcutta are very hujuke. What the hujuke in English, I just exactly, this is this curiosity mongering. You can say what they do, they start digging a well and they find a rocky terrain, they immediately shift the place. They start digging and find some sand, again they shift, and they never find water. You have to go on digging in one place. With the present internet and everything, we are doing the same thing. A little of this, little of that, nothing is happening. Dive deep. Just find what suits your temperament and dive deep and go to that. That alone can take us to that ultimate spiritual realization. But at the same time, when I'm diving deep, I should have that full conviction that others are also true. Maybe it's not up to my temperament, up because of my upbringing and all. It is not up to my temperament. Just the way when I go to the restaurant, the same uh, this food item by spicing becomes so many as in your menu, and as per your choice you can choose as per your taste, but after all, it is going to nourish you. So that's the way. These are all spiced differently, all these various paths. As per your choice, you choose and you go to the goal. But that doesn't mean any way the other paths are not going to work. They are also as valid as this. What we need is just faith and a tremendous urge. Once you have it, that spiritual realization, which doesn't speak only of this God vision, it speaks of transcending our ego, transcending our sense of limitedness. That's the cause of all addiction. Once you can transcend that in a very positive way, that actually speaks of the real spirituality. And that's what Sri Ramakrishna is there to show us through his life. The more we can inculcate the life in our life by understanding the life in its true perspective, the more beneficial our life will be. So with these words, we conclude our discussion today. And yes, in future, we can again take up this topic and discuss the other phases of life also elaborately when the time permits. So thank you all for just attending to this program. Namaste. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.